Hello there. Welcome to Bible Discoveries, The Weekend Show. My name's Corie, and I'm here with my husband, Matlock. Hey, Matlock.
Again, how you doing?
Isaiah. I'm doing good, and I'm excited about Isaiah.
Yeah, me too. So, Isaiah 32?
Yes, we are smack dab in the middle of Isaiah. We're doing Isaiah 32 to 52. That was our assigned reading from Monday to Saturday. And then on Sunday, you're supposed to read Psalm 83 to 86.
Yes.
So yes, Isaiah has 66 chapters, so we're still a few chapters shy of finishing Isaiah, but it's a good book. There's lots going on, so I'm ready to dig in.
Okay, let's go. Let's go for it.
Okay, as always, Matlock, interrupt me if you have something interesting to say, and at the end, we have some comments and questions from you guys. Okay, Isaiah chapter 32. So, this chapter contrasts what a righteous kingdom would look like versus what's actually going on in the kingdom of Judah. So it's an indictment of Judah. And there's a promise that there will be a righteous king and righteous kingdom. The chapter here also speaks to the women of Jerusalem who are going to have to face the brutal reality of an Assyrian invasion. And yet, there is hope for them when the Spirit will be poured out from the heavens, when God's Spirit. Interesting. Lots of cool things going on in Isaiah 32. In Isaiah 33, we get this call and response type chapter. It goes between decrying the destroyer, likely Assyria, then the people of God calling out to God for grace, and God responding to the people. So it's this really interesting call and response. And ultimately, the righteous are promised that they're going to see the coming of the righteous king and the kingdom as it should be. So they're crying out for righteousness, they're crying out for justice, and the promise is there that they are going to see it. We're told that the Lord is going to be judge, lawgiver, and king, and the sins of all the righteous are going to be forgiven. All right, Isaiah chapter 34. This is all about the Lord's day of vengeance against the nations and against all unrighteousness, and it's described in a poetic way. Isaiah chapter 35 is a contrast to this. This chapter looks at the joy of everything and everyone else once evil has finally been dealt with. And there are themes, very strong themes in Isaiah chapter 35 that are picked up on by Jesus and the apostles in the New Testament. Let me read just a few verses here, starting in verse 5. I'm going to read from the NIV. It says this: "Then the eyes of the blind will be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like a deer, and the mute tongue shout for joy. Water will gush forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground bubbling springs. In the haunts where jackals once lay, grass and reeds and papyrus will grow, and a highway will be there. It will be called the way of holiness. It will be for those who walk on that way. The unclean will not journey on it. Wicked fools will not go on about it. No lion will be there, nor any ravenous beast. They will not be found there, but only the redeemed will walk there, and those the Lord has rescued will return. They will enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away." So that's verses 5 to 10. But if you're familiar with the Gospels, hopefully you will have seen several allusions, maybe in your mind, back to Isaiah chapter 35. If not, remember it for when you do go into the New Testament and begin studying along with us. Okay, Isaiah chapter 36, vastly different. We move back into historical narrative. So the invasion of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, into Judah is described. In one very brief sentence, Isaiah describes the fall of dozens of cities of Judah. And we see the commander of Sennacherib speaking in Hebrew so that all the people of Jerusalem can understand. Make no mistake, that was psychological warfare. It also probably meant that this commander of Sennacherib was originally a northern Israelite exile who had advanced in the Assyrian military, because he's speaking Hebrew. Anyway, he accuses Hezekiah, the king of Jerusalem, of offending God by tearing down the high places. Now, for that, I want us to think about that for a second, because for that argument to have any weight with the people of Jerusalem, there must have been competing views as to how best serve God. We tend to think of it like, there was the righteous in Judah and then there was the unrighteous. And that is true. But boots on the ground, what must it have been like to be living in Judah in that time period? Well, it seems like, just like today, there were competing views on how best to serve God. And we know from the rest of Isaiah that people had become okay with following God in the way that seemed right to them, rather than the way that the old covenant, his covenant with them, had laid out. So the Assyrian commander promises that anyone who defects from Jerusalem, and if anyone changes sides, switches allegiance between King Hezekiah to Sennacherib, at this point, if you'll just defect or surrender, you'll be treated well. And again, if this guy is an Israelite, his words here have weight because he himself is a defector and now he's a commander of the Assyrian military. All right, Isaiah chapter 37. Hezekiah, in response, goes to the temple. He sends his men to meet the prophet Isaiah. He goes to the temple. He sends his men to go to Isaiah to ask Isaiah to pray for the remnant, meaning everyone who is alive in Jerusalem at that moment. Once again, Hezekiah receives this letter from Sennacherib and takes it to the temple, and God gives him a message that Jerusalem will survive and that a small remnant there will continue on. Keep in mind, this is very bitter comfort because Hezekiah has lost the rest of his kingdom. It's all gone. It's just Jerusalem that's left. We're told that the angel of the Lord then kills many Assyrian soldiers overnight, the ones who are camping outside of Jerusalem, and Assyria withdraws from the land. And there's an account of how Sennacherib was murdered by his own sons, which has been historically verified. So has the whole account of Sennacherib coming into Judah. His own records still exist, which is very cool. Okay, Isaiah chapter 38. This is out of chronological order, it seems, but Hezekiah comes down with a sickness that involves a boil, and he's on his deathbed. And this is before the Assyrian invasion ever happens. And Isaiah the prophet tells Hezekiah, "You're going to die." But when Hezekiah cries out to God and asks for God to remember him and his faithfulness and how he's been trying to reform the nation to follow God, God sends Isaiah back to Hezekiah to tell him that he is going to live, he's going to recover because he cried out, and he's going to live another 15 years. And that God will deliver Jerusalem from Assyria. So this means that this whole episode of Hezekiah almost dying and then crying out to God and then being saved was a sign to show Hezekiah what to do in the Assyrian invasion. It's going to look like you're going to die. Come to me, cry out, and I'm going to save you and extend Jerusalem's life. Judah's going to be overtaken. Jerusalem on the deathbed. I'm beating a dead horse now, but God will rescue her as they pray. Okay. Isaiah chapter 39. This is another instance in Hezekiah's political life that God uses to foretell the future. So after his sickness, he's recovered. But before the Assyrian invasion, we get this episode. Someone named Maruk Baladan, however you want to say it, king of Babylon, and a rebel against Assyria. He sends envoys to Jerusalem when he hears of Hezekiah's illness and recovery. And Hezekiah treats these Babylonian men as if they're allies. Doesn't say they had an official treaty, doesn't say they were official allies, but he treats them as if they are allied because he shows them all of his wealth, all of the temple's wealth, all of Jerusalem's wealth, and thus their power for warfare. So Isaiah prophesies to Hezekiah that one day Jerusalem itself will fall to Babylon, and all the wealth that Hezekiah has shown them is going to become Babylonian. And that some of the descendants of Hezekiah, meaning the descendants of David, that's what we're dealing with here, the house of David, the line of David, will be taken to Babylonian courts and be made eunuchs. Meaning, yes, they will be officials in the king of Babylon's court. Yes, they can have great power and wealth, but they could never continue the line of David. They can't propagate the dynasty of David. So it's a little bit of a big deal here. And Hezekiah doesn't really seem to be able to emotionally handle any of this. He gives the whole line like, well, it's not going to happen in my lifetime, so okay, so be it. And I wonder if this episode was meant to display that Hezekiah wasn't the Messiah, wasn't the awaited for Messiah. Was that a rising hope in Judah? Was that a rising suspicion because he had done this great religious reform and he was trying to reunite Israel and Judah? Maybe, I don't know. That's reading into things. Do with it what you will. It's interesting, nevertheless. Isaiah chapter 40. God, as the one who will call his people back to the land, he is called a shepherd. He is like their shepherd. He's going to bring them back to the land like a shepherd. No one compares to God. All the nations are nothing before him. Idols are foolish. They're stupid. And God will take care of those who trust in him. That's the summary of Isaiah 40. Isaiah 41, likewise, God is above all things. He's above all history, all warfare. Israel and Jacob are the chosen servants of God, and all who rage against them will fail and be brought down, not because they're great, but because God himself is the helper of Israel and Judah. Isaiah says that Israel will be God's threshing sledge. He also says that God is the God of the poor and the God of the needy. And in Isaiah 41, the vague prophecies of the pagan gods, they're vague, they're general. They're compared to the specific prophecies of God's prophets. Mm-hmm. We give you dates, we give you times, we give you actualities. They're giving you like, I feel like. Isaiah kind of is poking fun here at a serious topic. Isaiah chapter 42, the servant of God is introduced here. And I say introduced because this servant of God in Isaiah 42 seems to clash with when Israel is described as a servant of God. So Israel is a servant in need of rescue, a blind servant, a rebellious servant. But the servant of Isaiah 42, the servant of God, he is unbreakable. He brings justice. He's faithful. He's not discouraged. He gives teachings that causes the far-off lands to put their hope in God. God will make this servant a covenant for the people and a light for the Gentiles to open blind eyes and release captives. Obviously, as a Christian, this is Jesus Christ. Isaiah chapter 43, God will still be with Israel and Jacob through their exiles. They are going into exile, and he will bring them back. There's a brief history of God's relationship with Israel and Judah, showing God's innocence and their rebellion in this matter of their exile. Isaiah chapter 44, this is all about how God will restore his relationship with his chosen people. He's going to pour out his spirit on them. Isaiah 45. Okay, this one's cool, Matlock.
Mm-hmm.
In this one,
Yes.
Isaiah names of a man yet to be born.
Cyrus, yes.
Yes, Cyrus, whom history will remember as Cyrus the Great.
Yes, and he comes in to Jerusalem. They're like, our prophets have spoken about you.
Yes.
Yes.
He manages to unite the Medes and the Persians and conquer the Babylonian Empire. But hundreds of years before he's born, the prophet Isaiah writes his name and that God has called him before he's born to do such a thing and to allow the exiles, to bring the exiles back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple. So this is all about how God's going to use a foreign pagan nation to bring his people back. Isaiah 46, this one is all about the demise of the idols, the gods of Babylon. And Isaiah pictures them as going off into captivity. So the captors led away into captivity.
What's interesting too about Isaiah 45 is that it says, thus saith the Lord to his anointed.
Yes.
To Cyrus, right? And then at the end of this, so not the end, but in between, he says, that you may know that it is I, the Lord, the God of Israel, who called you by your name.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm telling you this message in advance, right? It's an amazing thing. But what's interesting is about this anointed. That you've been anointed for a task.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think about anointing, we often think about it in terms of very special, like for the tabernacle, these kinds of uses. But it's also for a special purpose.
Yeah.
Right? And so anyways, people often associate Cyrus with a different kind of anointing. That read about it in Daniel, these different things like that. But no, there's a whole theology that comes with this anointing process outside of the scope. But Cyrus is not an Israelite. He grows up his whole life, knows nothing about the God of Israel, then comes over. Maybe he's heard about him, but like maybe you don't know. But and then he comes over and all of a sudden he hears his prophecy.
Well, and we know that like when he takes over Babylon, there are prominent Babylonian officials that are actually Judahites.
Right.
Daniel,
yes.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
That's right.
And they have the scriptures. They've stayed faithful to God even in their exile, even though they look Babylonian at this point. And they're known for their observance of the Hebrew God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
That's right.
It's interesting, isn't it?
It's very interesting. Oh, it's very cool.
So this exposure to...
Yeah, but you wouldn't often associate someone who's pagan with anointed. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's just not a common thing. People just associate those today. But in God's perfect timing and will, he's been anointed in that sense.
For a specific task.
For a specific task.
For a specific task.
So there's semantic range.
Doesn't necessarily say anything about his morality or even about his salvation standing.
No, it doesn't.
Because he would have to make that choice of whether or not he was going to worship God, which history has some things to say about that are interesting. But if you're interested in taking a look at the history of Cyrus the Great, check out the Cyrus cylinder that famously records him allowing various exiles, not just the Israelite exiles, but various exiles to go back to their homelands to rebuild their places of worship. So he took a different, he was an empire builder, but he took a different strategy on how to handle conquered peoples.
Yes.
Which was allowing them to have their own culture still, which was very different than how other empires had done so.
Yes.
He's an interesting guy to look at.
It's cool. Right.
Okay, Isaiah chapter 47, the fall of Babylon is discussed. Basically the whys and the whats. What happened? Why did it happen? Isaiah chapter 48. So this compares what Judah claims to be with what they actually are. So they claim to be reliant on God, citizens of the holy city of God, citizens of Jerusalem. But what they actually are, God says through Isaiah, is stubborn and idolatrous. And Isaiah says, God has told you these things in advance so that you can't attribute what's going to happen to your idols. Like your prophets can say whatever they want to say, but I'm telling you what's going to happen right now. Isaiah chapter 49. So this is all about how God, through the ministering servant, through his servant, not through the blind servant, himself, God, through the ministering servant, will redeem the people of God from their sins. Very interesting. God's going to restore Israel through the servant and make a new covenant. Isaiah chapter 50, this one outlines and symbolizes Israel's great sin against God and the servant's faithfulness. So the servant is submissive to God, where Israel was rebellious. And the servant submits himself to suffering at the hands of others and waits for the vindication of God. So there's a lot of messianic prophecies in Isaiah chapter 50.
Yes. No, it's interesting because this is a lot of Jews, modern day Jews, try to claim that the servant is Israel one for one.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to find out by Isaiah 53 that Israel's not perfect. So
No.
it's like, but then the servant is and sinless.
Yes.
So then you're like, okay, so then how does this work? So there's clearly a distinction between the two. Anyways, but
and there are two servants. When you read through Isaiah, there's two servants that are outlined.
Oh, yeah.
There are servants that are the people of God, and it's the wicked servant, the blind servant, the horrible servant, the really bad servant. And then there's this other servant that's amazing and messianic, and you're like, okay, clearly these are not describing the same person.
They can't be. No,
I agree that there is a servant of God that's outlined as the people of Israel, the people of Judah, the descendants of Abraham. But they're the bad ones. Just like I'm not trying to be arrogant here. We as Christians, we've failed multiple times too. We are in desperate need of the work of the second servant of God, the holy one, the just one, the righteous one, the messianic one.
Yes.
That's the point of Christianity. Okay. So in Isaiah chapter 51, we get a call to those in Israel whose hope is in God. And this call is, he says, look to Abraham. Abraham and Sarah were barren, and yet God made them many. Likewise, the Lord will comfort Zion. God is the God of the impossible.
Mm-hmm.
With man, these things are impossible, but with God, they are not impossible. Basically, God is going to accomplish what he set out to do. Salvation is going to come for you, Israel, and for the Gentiles. They're told not to be afraid of men. God's righteousness and salvation will survive. And there's calls for God to awake. There's calls for the people of Jerusalem to awake. It's kind of beautiful. In Isaiah 52, we have a continuing call for Zion to awake and put strength on like a garment, which is interesting. This is a choice. You're not just strong. You're supposed to put strength on like a garment. You're choosing it. And the joy of the comforted people of God is described. And the chapter then moves on to the suffering servant. Now this righteous servant is going to be made to suffer. This begins in verse 13, and it's going to culminate in Isaiah chapter 53.
We should just read the whole thing. This is the coolest chapter, potentially.
Isaiah 53 is for next week, but you mean read, I know.
Oh, it's for next week. I was going to say.
But you can read the end of chapter 52. Because it begins the suffering
I was going to say, I know, it's verse 13. That's what I was thinking. But you know what? No, it's okay. I'll read the last three verses. But yeah, we should read verse 52, 13 onwards next time.
Sure.
Because if that's how we're starting the week.
Yeah.
What a great way to start it. The whole thing.
Great way
so let me just, verse 13. We'll do it again next week. But behold, my servant shall act wisely. He shall be high and lifted up and shall be exalted. As many were astonished at you, his appearance was so marred beyond human semblance, and his form beyond that of the children of mankind. So shall he sprinkle many nations, for kings shall shut their mouths because of him. For that which has not been told them they see, and that which they have not heard they understand. All right, well, that's a teaser, because I want to read. We're going to read the whole thing next week.
We're going to read the whole thing.
We might as well. It's amazing.
Next week.
All right. That's it, Corie.
That's it for our summary this week. Thank you for sticking in there, guys, if you're still here, because I know a recap of Isaiah is a little bit of a slog. What do you think about Isaiah before I get into our viewer comments and questions? Tell me in the comment section, if you're watching on YouTube, comment section down below, what's your favorite part about Isaiah? And what's one part about Isaiah that you find tricky to understand? Do you have any questions about what we talked about or what we read this week? It can even be historical questions about like if things were fulfilled historically. I'm curious to know what you guys struggle with and what you want to know as you're reading through Isaiah, because it's going to be different than what me and Matlock struggle with just because we're all different people. Okay. Viewer comments and questions, Matlock. We got a few comments.
Sure.
Asking about the different versions of the Bible that we're reading, so we can do that really quickly. I know we've done it before. Dale gets confused because he uses the NKJV, but on the weekend show, he was like, you're clearly not reading the New King James Version.
Yeah.
That is true. The Bible that I normally use on the weekend show is the NIV, just because that's the one that I carry back and forth with me between home and work. You have
the ESV.
The ESV.
Right.
With you right now.
But I often read the New King James Version.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. On Bible Discovery, the Daily Show, we use the New King James Version. That's what we read from in the actual reading portion of the show. And so then we just use it on the set.
There's some things I prefer about the New King James. This is very subtle, but I prefer their grammatical reverence for God. So when it says he, like let's say, or like a pronoun, it'll capitalize H.
Yeah.
ESV doesn't do that.
Right.
And I just
they do
like
proper English.
Yeah, I prefer the New King James, which it refers to God. It's always a capital letter in honor. I prefer that ethic, that practice. But
there are a lot of really good English translations. Like essentially, if you're looking for a good English translation, look for one of the main ones. Like ESV is great, NKJV is great, NIV is great. Like look for one that was done by a team of people, because that's how translations are properly done. If you find one that is done by a singular person, steer clear. I mean, a lot of times those are paraphrases, and paraphrases can be nice for kind of maybe like more devotional reading, but not really for study. If you're going to study, you're going to want to go with one of the main ones. I like to use a few different ones, but not everyone wants to have a few different Bibles. But you can even go online. There's various different online Bible apps where you can jog between different translations to kind of see. They're all so similar, but sometimes they'll use a different English word to describe a Hebrew or a Greek word, and that can be helpful if you're not a reader of biblical Hebrew and biblical Greek. It can be helpful to see the semantics of the word by how different teams translate them. Okay, so that was for Dale and Bobby as well. Hello. It was very similar. Okay, we do have a question related to the Proverbs. Okay. Do you want to tackle that one?
Sure.
Okay, so Tri-Fi Guy 3, hey Tri-Fi Guy, asks, Proverbs 26, verse 4-5. Should we answer a fool or not? Proverbs. So let me go there.
Okay.
Let me go there.
Okay. Well, really depends.
Well, I mean, I guess because this is... Okay. So Proverbs 26, verse 4 and 5 in the NIV says, do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own eyes.
Right. So you just don't answer a fool according to his folly, because you'll be a fool with him, and then also he'll think he's wise. So you just don't answer a fool in the way of the fool.
Right.
That's it.
That is definitely what it's getting at.
Yeah. Yes. So of course, like if someone who's not very smart, let's say, which is not what foolish means, but some people think that today. This means that you're not very smart. If you're not very smart, someone asks you a question, you can answer that question. But what fool's getting at is someone who's
denies God,
someone who projects a question, but it's not sincere because he already in his mind knows the answer. So it's not quite the same thing. And so you kind of just like, when someone's that arrogant, like a fool is arrogant. So you just kind of leave the fool alone to God and his own devices half the time. There might be a point, because this is Proverbs, so it's wisdom. Generally speaking, apply this. It doesn't mean 100% of the time apply this. There might be a time where you have to engage a fool and rebuke a fool. There may be a time for that.
There definitely is a time for that.
Yeah.
But you're not supposed to do it in the way that the fool would do it.
Of course not.
Because that you have to be careful when you're engaging someone who denies God, because you don't want to deny God in your answer. You don't want to become like the person.
Yes. 100%.
Which I think is what this is getting at.
Yes.
Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him.
Yes.
Well, so how would you be just like the fool if you indulged in the foolishness? So don't indulge in a fool's foolishness when you're speaking with them. But then it says, answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own eyes. I just think they're pretty amazing if they don't get any pushback or any resistance.
Yes.
But can you answer them in a way that you yourself don't become like them? I think the answer is yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because again, there's a time for rebuke and there's a time not to, and you never respond to a fool in foolishness. You're doing wisdom and through righteousness or through whatever it might be in charity, because really, right? Because it's kind of like if a fool, if you think about it like a jester, to put it into visual terms. So if a fool is like parading around like a jester or a clown, right? Trying to make himself above the king would then not make himself a jester or a clown
to speak the language of the jester.
Right? And so often, ironically, apologetics does this often. And I'm not saying all apologetics. I'm saying there's a lot of people in the apologetics arena, like Twitter, X, whatever, just social media,
right,
who try to speak everything according to the way someone understands it. Mm-hmm. Rather than just being like, and everything's about like trying to come to this person's level, like to the nth degree, where you just like you ended up abandoning the very position you have just to try to make someone understand something that they're not willing to grasp. So anyways, so you end up becoming a fool in your desperate desire to appeal to this fool, right? And it just doesn't work. Just doesn't work.
I think this is speaking to the concept of overcoming evil with good.
Yes.
Like you don't become evil so that you can speak to evil.
Of course.
You may change the way that you speak to have them give you, to give them the best opportunity of having them understand you.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yes.
But not to the point of indulging in sinful behaviors or sinful attitudes. We overcome evil with good. We don't become evil ourselves. That's wild. Then we become under the condemnation.
Yes.
And I think that's the purpose of this wisdom saying. It's to get us to think about and discuss what that means.
Yes.
And it would be highly situational, as we've said, like highly situational. So
that's the Proverbs. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the Proverbs.
That's why this is a general wisdom. It's like it makes you think about, okay, you're going to have to talk with people who deny God, but be careful how you speak to them, because in so doing, don't yourself deny the God whom you claim to serve.
Yes.
It's that whole be seasoned with grace, speak to people with grace. Don't become evil yourself when you're claiming to represent truth and goodness.
Yeah,
and
don't overcome evil with evil, overcome evil with good.
And it's such a slippery slope.
Yeah.
It can be such a slippery slope. We can so easily become the enemy that we claim to fight. So we got to be really careful, really careful, because we ourselves are not above condemnation and above
judgment,
reaping penalty for our sin.
Consequence.
Yeah, judgment, consequence. Thank you. I'm like, where are those words?
Yeah.
I need some more tea. The words are escaping me.
That's right. All right.
Yikes. Yikes. All right, guys. Let me know if you have questions coming up. Tri-Fly Guy, how did we do with that? How have you thought about that? Because I know you have. I know you. You're a deep thinker. You comment a lot. What do you think about Proverbs 26? I would like to hear what you think about that too. All right, guys. Don't forget to comment down below on what you want to see coming up in next episodes, comments and questions. And until next week, happy reading and studying.